If you have to put someone down on basis of their race to feel better about yourself, then that says volumes about the status of your self-esteem. In the popular words of Maya Angelou, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will not forget how you made them feel. In this episode, I will share an anecdote of a little incident that happened a few years ago, how it made me feel, and what we can learn from it. Welcome to another episode of Diaspora Honey and Beestings, where we talk about the ups and downs of living abroad. My name is Lydia Atandi, for those who are joining us for the very first time. Welcome aboard. We are so glad you're here. And for our returning viewers, thank you so much for tuning in again. And speaking of that, we are currently at a little over 250 subscribers. I like to celebrate little milestones. It's a big win for me because when I see one new subscriber, it really is rewarding, because it means that one new person is resonating with our content, which makes me so happy. So thank you so much. And speaking of that, if you have not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let's get to 500 subscribers. I know we can do this. So a bit of my background is that Kenya is my country of origin. I lived there for most of my life so far. In the year 2014, I relocated to the US, and I've lived there since 2014. I live in the state of Kansas, in a city called Wichita. And like I promised, today I have a little short story for you. So sometime back in 2017, that was about 8 years ago, actually 8 years ago, I needed to go back to Kenya to take care of some things regarding my career. Back then, I was a green card holder, and you couldn't just up and leave the country and stay for over a month without filling in some paperwork online. And that was my plan. I was planning to stay in Kenya for more than 1 month. So I filled in the appropriate paperwork online, but I still had a few questions regarding how to proceed. I looked for the answers online. I couldn't find them. So I decided to book an appointment with the closest immigration office. So on the material day, I did my due diligence. I went to the immigration office and I got in line. So when there was just one person before me, something happened. So there was this gentleman that was ahead of me, right? And I noticed he was French speaking. He had a French accent, and he had a lot of questions to the lady that was attending to him. The lady that was attending to him was this Caucasian lady that seemed to be in her mid-40s. And you might be wondering, what's the significance of giving those details, but you'll find out later in the story. So yeah, he did have a lot of questions, and they took a long time. And a lot of the conversation too was from that lady's end. She was joking a lot. She was having a lot of small talk, and they did take a concerningly long time. But I said, let me be patient. It's probably a complex immigration issue. Let me just give them time. So finally, it was my turn, and I walked up to the lady's workstation. And when she saw me, her face switched from, one of delight and happiness to just rude and giving me the "I don't like you" vibes. Her face just contorted, and I was like, okay. So I asked her the first question I had, and while I was speaking to her, she was fiddling with the items on her workstation. She was staring into space. And when I remember when the gentleman that was before me was talking to her, she was nodding her head vigorously. She was smiling. So she was giving me quite the opposite reaction. She was actually going out of her way to not pay attention. So I was like, okay. So after I had asked the first question, she was like, all the answers are in the USCIS website. And she stood up and she left. I was like, whoa, I couldn't believe that just happened. I couldn't believe that someone could just comfortably be so condescending. So I hoped that she would come back in a few minutes, but no, she was away for about 10 minutes. And when she came back, I said, I I have some questions. Would you please help me? Then she actually stood up and she said, I need to go on break. And she left. I was done. I could not believe it. I did not understand. I could not fathom why someone would treat me with such contempt, especially considering I had not said anything disrespectful to her. I had not done anything disrespectful to her. And I am not one to ask for the manager when anything goes wrong. But for the very first time in my life, I wanted to speak to the manager. And there was this security staff member that was in attendance. He noticed I was upset, asked me what was going on. I narrated to him what had happened, and he was very empathizing, very understanding. And he was like, you definitely need to speak to someone in authority. And he led me to a room where I was supposed to speak to someone to whom I could express my grievance. So as I sat there in that room, I was trying to dissect why this lady had decided to treat me in such contempt, to treat me so badly. And as I sat there waiting, the very same lady walked into the room looking subdued this time, and she asked in a mixed sounding voice, how can I help you? So I looked up and looked at her and shook my head. I said, so now you want to help me because I want to speak to the manager. Now you want to help me after me coming to your workstation and you acting like I don't exist. Now you want to help me after taking 2 long breaks while I came to your station without even addressing the concerns that I have. Now you want to help me. And you would think that this is the time that this lady would apologize and would be good and live happily ever after. But that is not what happened. So she started crying. Yes, you heard me right. She started crying. And she accused me of aggravating her anxiety. Everything was happening so fast. I was just in too much shock. And in the middle of everything happening, an older looking gentleman walked into the room, and he asked what was going on. So the story turned into how I was saying all these things to her and aggravating her anxiety. Mark you, I did not say anything disrespectful to her. I did not accuse her of anything that had not happened. I was just stating my side of the story and just stating my surprise that now she wanted to help me now that I want to speak to the manager. So yeah, the story turned into how I was aggravating her anxiety. And I looked up to the gentleman and actually narrated to him what had happened. I told him my side of the story. And he very hurriedly addressed my questions. And he was like, if you have any more questions, go to the USCIS website. And then I reiterated the fact that I had not received the appropriate treatment. I had been treated unfairly. The least you can do is apologize. None of that was addressed. He just continued talking about how actually this is the flimsy response that he gave me. He said, we have many customers and time is not on our side. And then he took the lady to one corner of the room and started consoling her like she was the victim. So that day, I sat at that office for 15 more minutes, and I had a myriad of emotions that I was feeling at that time. I felt angry. I felt sad, but the predominant feeling I felt at that time was the feeling of powerlessness. There's no bad feeling. One of the worst feelings is the feeling of going up to someone who you think will protect your rights, will defend you, and then they actually turn against you. They actually do the opposite of that. So that day, I felt really bad. In my stay in Kansas for the 10 years that I've been here, I have experienced a few scattered moments of racism. I have experienced overt racism, and I have experienced covert or indirect racism. And sometimes someone will say something that is so racially loaded, I'll be in so much shock. And I used to go home and be like, I wish I had said this. I wish I had said this in response. That would have been the perfect comeback. But God worked on me and helped me realize that it's not me. It's them. It's less about me and more about them. And He gave me the wisdom to deal with each encounter. And that did not mean being docile or silent all the time and letting anything pass. It meant He helped me have the wisdom to know what to speak and when to speak when it was time to speak. He gave me the wisdom to know when to be silent because it was not worth it to start a conversation. And like I said, He helped me realize He helped me remember that it's less about me and more about them. I truly believe that people that are racist have low self-esteem. I believe that racial discrimination is a manifestation of inferiority complex. If you have to put someone down on basis of their race to feel better about yourself, then that says volumes about the status of your self-esteem. So the more I realized this, the more at peace I got with just sometimes letting it go. Having said that, I have to say that 85% of the interactions that I've had with the people of Kansas have been great, and 15% have not been that great, and that's okay. I have to acknowledge the fact that some people that you meet will be mean, others will just be going through their own issues and difficulties in life, and they will project that on you. It is just very liberating to remember that the only person that I have control over is myself. The way someone else chooses to perceive me, or people that look like me, or people that are not of their race, that is not within my control, and it is just very liberating to remember that. So I hope today's episode helped every one of us just evaluate ourselves and assess how we treat people, assess our own biases. And I deliberately wore a red top just to remind us the color of blood that oozes out when each and every one of us bleeds. So I do have one call to action today, and that is, in a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. Subscribe if you resonated with today's episode. I hope you have a very blessed day, and I will see you on the next episode.